Hey guys, how are you doing today? My name is Valerians and welcome back to another episode of Movie Talk, a show where I talk about my thoughts and opinions on movies past and present. Today, we'll be taking a look at the sequel to Jurassic Park, Steven Spielberg's 1997 movie, The Lost World, Jurassic Park. Now, before we get into it, I just want to take a brief look at the general consensus of this movie as a whole, because it seems like the public doesn't really see this movie in a good light. People say it's dull, boring, filled with ridiculous characters, and overall not a joy to watch. To which I say, I don't really think so. This movie isn't entirely that bad. In fact, I kinda think this movie is an underrated gem. So join me as I delve into The Lost World Jurassic Park and why I believe it's not as bad as some people might say. So I'm going to be dividing my reasoning to three main topics, which are the story and themes, the characters, the expectations of this movie, and finally, and wrap it up with some minor notes and my final thoughts. So let's dive into the plot of this movie. Ian Malcolm returns as he is tasked by John Hammond to go to an entirely new island called Site B. The goal is to document these dinosaurs in their natural habitat in order to prove that the dinosaurs should not be harmed or exploited by any government or company, specifically InGen, the company Hammond owned in the first movie but has lost control over. InGen has plans to collect these dinosaurs and make a new park with them. Malcolm is then joined by a team of varying personalities, and on the island, he's faced with adversaries both from dinosaur and human. I feel like this plot should be credited for its simplicity and subtle themes. The first movie had people go to the park because they basically needed money. This movie showed similar strides as first, with Malcolm given a very worldly motivation to go back to the island full of dinosaurs, which is an external motivation given by Hammond to save them. But this is a motivation that Malcolm really doesn't care about due to the dinosaurs hurting him in the first movie. But this movie also gives him a second internal motivation, that is, the internal motivation of love. Due to knowing the dangers of said island and hearing his girlfriend was set there, he rushes in to rescue her, which I think is smart, because since this is a returning character in the sequel, said character needs to be given more motivation to go back to the same dangers, which brings to what I perceive as a central theme of this movie: love. In the first movie, I feel as though the theme was greed and all the dangers about it, with perhaps love being a secondary theme. This time, I feel as though although greed is present as a theme, the themes of love and relationship take the driving force in this film. Case in point, the things people do for love, which is most prevalently shown in the dynamics between Ian with his girlfriend Sarah and daughter Kelly, with Ian going to the island to save his girlfriend, Sarah going to the island due to her love of dinosaurs, and Kelly, lacking love from her father Ian, going to the island as a stowaway. But not all is good about love. In The Lost World, it also shows the dangers of blind love, which is a hunter who loves for torturing dinosaurs to get his comeuppance, a man who relies and loves his equipment too much is killed when he can't access it, and the love of money leads people to harm animals and other humans, which ties back to the central theme of the franchise, which is greed. So to summarize, this movie has a straightforward plot to get the pace going, and a theme to analyze if we're actually willing to dig deep enough. On to the characters. This is what most people also have a problem with. The fact that the characters are quote-unquote evil, they're boring, and they're generally hard to root for. Personally, I like to look at these people having flaws, especially in the fact that these people, especially the protagonists, do evil things for good intentions. But before that, I like to focus on the other characters, and then I'll go into the rest of why I feel like these characters were written in that way. First off, Ian Malcolm, the main protagonist of the film. He's not the suave, charismatic guy we see in the first movie. He's been changed by the experiences in the park. Sure, he makes sarcastic remarks and digs at people, but he's got a sort of venom to it. It's like he feels like a more darker version of himself, and I honestly enjoy that. I don't think that Jurassic Park 1 Malcolm is what the story needed. In the first movie, Alan Grant was a wonderful protagonist in making people see the awe and beauty of these creatures, but I feel like Malcolm's attitude in this film is trying to give the audience a perspective of a man who sees through the facade of these creatures and understands the dangers of them. And the sarcasm he gets in this movie probably stems from the fact that nobody wants to listen to him, and the fact that these creatures are very dangerous and they should actually be left alone to their own devices. Julianne Moore's Sarah Harding plays a decent secondary protagonist. She's likable to a certain extent, but for most people, she just feels like a watered-down version of JP1's secondary protagonist, Ellie Sattler, which I think is kind of what they were going for. Because Sarah feels like if Ellie was a woman who was only driven by her ambition and her love for archaeology and didn't take in the fact that she might be endangering human lives. She does have her moments, especially during the final act, but in the first two, she's almost constantly running into or bringing danger to her team due to her love of dinosaurs and archaeology. Another testament to how her blind love can lead to so much chaos. Richard Schiff's Eddie and Vanessa Lee Curtis, Kelly, were alright in their roles. I don't really have much to say about them. Well, except for one scene regarding Kelly and Yes, I'm not going to sit here and defend the gymnastics scene, it's just that bad. Period. No joke. The main antagonist, Peter Ludlow, however, yeah, he's not really that interesting. He's just another guy who wants money. A shame too. I feel like if he was fleshed out just a bit more, his motivations would have gotten much better and much more understood. He would have been a really good antagonist with layers, or maybe just a character who isn't really an antagonist, but stands ideologically against what Malcolm and his team stand for. As it is right now, he's just another businessman who wants money and power, and a generic one at that. Peter Stormare also plays a secondary villain in this movie, but he really doesn't do anything besides torturing a few animals and then, well, dying. I feel like his role was solely to promote the message that animal cruelty is bad, which it obviously is, but I feel like it's an unfortunate waste of an actor. So anyways, back to what I previously stated about these characters and flaws. I feel like these characters were made in that way not have the scale so tipped as Ian's team as the good-on-good protagonists and the InGen hunters are the antagonists. The InGen team aren't actively harming them, except for the hunter played by Peter Stormare. They're really just trying to do a job in the best way they can. They even hired an expert just to make sure everything goes well. However, this blurred the lines I feel is most shown between the dynamic relationship between two characters, Vince Vaughn's Nick Van Owen and the lead InGen hunter, Rowan Tembo, played by the late Pete Postlethwaite. Nick is the saboteur of Ian's team, the one responsible for wreaking havoc towards InGen facilities and leave them stranded on the island, while Rowan is the main man leading the expedition, but he's actually nothing like the main antagonist, Peter Ludlow. He's actually honorable, he's got a code, and his actual sole mission on the island is just to hunt the T-Rex for sport. He also is shown to leave no man behind, whether it's his team or not, as shown by him leading the group to actually rescue Ian's team after they've been attacked by the T-Rexes, even after Nick sabotaged their camp in the previous scene. It proves that they still care about their fellow man and would work to get everyone out safely. Ironically, Nick and especially Rowan are shown to converse in a couple of scenes, and later in the movie, Nick steals a couple of bullets from Rowan's gun, preventing him from killing the T-Rex, which followed them to their camp. This causes the T-Rex to live, killing quite a few of the InGen party, with the rest getting killed after running away from the T-Rex into a velociraptor hunting ground. It shows that even though Nick thought that he did a quote-unquote good act by saving the T-Rex, his actions caused a domino effect that would later be carried out in the last act of the film, causing even more death, destruction, and chaos. Even if he wasn't there to witness what he inadvertently caused, it's sort of like paying homage to Ian Malcolm's own words of chaos theory, where he stated that even the smallest actions can bring long-lasting effects. This actually brings the viewer to a good question. Is it actually right that these animals should still be safe, and the efforts to do so, however, cost so many human lives and putting even more human lives in danger? Though the film gives the answer to this question with a resounding yes, it also gives material to form a counter-argument against it, which is single-handedly given to the audience by the actions and consequences of these characters alone, by their hypocrisy on both sides, in which people are trying to do what they think is right. The Lost World shows that not everything is as white as black as in the first film. In fact, there are many shades of grey. My last topic before I get into my final thoughts, the expectations. Jurassic Park was in the minds of every man, woman, and child when it was first released, and honestly, everybody wanted more. It's really a heavy burden to produce a sequel of a hit that big. Hell, even Spielberg felt like it was straining from trying to create this movie. It really does feel like they were genuinely trying to make a movie that was not only a film that can stand on its own, but can also satisfy the expectations that were placed by the first movie's arguably very high bar. I feel as though that's where most of the disappointment from this movie comes from, is that this movie, although has the same basic elements, i.e. human and dinosaurs, they're really two different ballparks. I think it was this expectation that they wanted more of the same, which led this movie to being seen as a quote-unquote disappointment. And although it is sad to see this, it is understandable. And I can only compliment that they were trying to do something new with this, but they could have seen this coming as well. So, to wrap things up, I feel as though The Lost World is a movie that's been compared unjustly to the first. I do understand that in a franchise it's bound to happen, but the first and second films feel so different from one another, and I think that it lends to the strength of the Steven Spielberg duology. Jurassic Park showcased the wonder of these prehistoric marvels can be undone by greed, yet this film portrays those same marvels under a different, albeit much darker filter. The fact that even the things we do for the best of intentions can cause harm, that the things that we do for love can blind us from common sense, and that there are sometimes good people on bad sides and vice versa. The Lost World may not be a perfect movie, a very loosely attached third act, and a boring main villain make sure of that. But it is by no means a bad movie. So what do you guys think? Whether you agree or disagree with me, let me know in the comments down below. It's always nice to have a civil discussion. If you do enjoy the content that I'm making, please leave a like and perhaps subscribing to the channel, as that helps me out tons. Next movie talk, I'm going to be discussing the next entry in the Jurassic Park franchise, which in my opinion is where the franchise starts taking a turn for the worst, Jurassic Park 3. My name is Valerians, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye!